Summer Stephan is the San Diego County District Attorney, and she has devoted her life. It's interesting. It should say whole life, because I think you started at age 1 from what I've heard from people close to you. Protecting children, families, providing justice to the most vulnerable, and a national leader in the fight against human trafficking, sexual exploitation. Summer rose through the ranks, fighting for justice in the trenches before the San Diego County voters overwhelmingly elected Summer as the DA in 2018 and again in 2022. As a district attorney, she leads the second largest DA's office in California, the fifth largest in the United States, manages a staff of 1,000, serving as the people's prosecutor for San Diego County and more than 3 million residents. Summer leverages her extensive courtroom management and leadership experience to set clear and public priorities in collaboration with law enforcement and the community, keeping San Diego County one of the safest urban regions in the United States. 2022, Summer was named one of the 5 best prosecutors in America, utilizing evaluation factors, integrity, fidelity to the rule of law, and responsible innovations and community relations. That's all I'm going to read. And if I'm not mistaken, Summer, you are also now the president of the National District Attorneys Association. Did I say that correctly?
Yes. It's an honor to serve in that role as well. San Diego's model to a national stage and trying to make better laws on a national stage.
Okay. A couple personal things, and then I'm going to let you go. Let you talk. You're not going to go. We have you 30 minutes. I've talked to your staff and they've locked it down. They're not letting you out of your office. I've personally known Summer for, I don't know, probably a third of my life. Something I didn't mention in the bio is your involvement with the opioid task force that I know you've started and you've been active with. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the first district attorneys to prosecute and get a sentence for somebody who actually sold illicit drugs with fentanyl that killed somebody. So I applaud you for that. And I also know that you work very, very aggressively with elder abuse and, of course, human trafficking. And I sit on a couple of your different committees, and I don't think I've ever met anybody who not just works hard, but brings their A game to everything they do. I don't know how you do what you do the way you do it every day. You have a tremendous passion for what you do. And, I'm a little upset. It took me about a year to get this appointment, but I know how busy you are. And the fact that you said, yes, but I need a year, because last year was a tough one and you went through some budget stuff, but you've never said no. And we're going to see you on Thursday at our SOAP meeting. And I appreciate you doing that. But I personally believe that there's a committee that God has. I call it the 1%ers. And then when the time comes and you go to heaven, you'll be on the board of directors. My mom's there, so please say hi one day when you ever get there. And I hope to be there one day myself. But I'm just so proud to know you. I love you as a human being. I think your commitment to others is immeasurable and exemplary. And I wish we could see other parts of leadership in our country do 10% of what you do and how you do it. So, and I'm not brown nosing because I don't need anything from you. So I say this as a heartfelt sharing and how I really feel about you and the work you do. And I've watched people's lives that you've touched before and after, and the prevention pieces that you're involved with. And not many people in criminal justice see prevention and education as a big part, and you always have. So that's all I want to share about you personally. And what I'd like to do is have you share with our guests, and then Fredd and I will get into our Q&A about what it is you'd like to talk about. Because this is your half hour. This is your opportunity to tell people what you think they should hear, what you'd like them to hear, what maybe they've heard but haven't listened to, or listened to and haven't heard. And this will go out to our network, and we'll give it to you for your network. And if you do a good job and don't get yourself in trouble, then maybe you weren't as honest as you should be. So feel free. This is all yours. So Summer Stephan, tell us about you, and welcome to our show.
Scott, it's an honor to be with you. It really was a good day when I met you and saw the work that you're doing in healing people, coming into families' lives when they're in crisis, and letting them know there is a way to address addiction with dignity and respect and to heal people's lives. So I'm honored to have known you. It's great to have just met you, Fredd. I'm sure you're in Scott's company. You're a good person too. Um, and thank you for all the nice things you said. Really, everything good about what I've done comes back to surrounding myself with incredible talent, 1,000 employees that care about the community we serve. And we remember this word, it's easy when you get in positions of power to think that you're there for you, but really you're only there to serve others. And so long as we keep our eye on that mission, we're going to do okay. And we have done really good things in keeping San Diego safe, but also in bringing innovations that have helped save lives, helped keep people out of the criminal justice system, but also held people accountable when they decide to begin hurting others. So I think what I want to focus on a little bit is this new proposition that passed in California, which is Proposition 36, because that's what I'm busy working on right now is the implementation of Proposition 36. So we can talk more through your follow-up question. The essential theme of Proposition 36 was twofold, is to look at two big problems in public safety. One is that it's become really ridiculous in our stores to see that it's almost like there's a sign up that stealing is legal and people can come in, take whatever they want and leave and then resell it online, essentially causing these employees that are working there, many at minimum wage, to just look out and see that their next raise, the profit margin is just going out the door. Never mind that there's this fear of what's going to happen next. Is this person going to turn violent if I look at them, try to stop them, which was happening. And this was an untenable situation. I mean, having everything locked up is not the right thing. And of course, we know it also has an intersection with addiction in that the organized crime, the fences, the people who are going to resell these products online or using people who are in despair, who are addicted by giving them a little bit of cash in return to buy more drugs so that they can line their pockets with money. So it was this vicious cycle. And what Prop 36 did is it said, let's balance this out. Let's give people a first chance at a misdemeanor. Some dumb kid comes in, takes, a six-pack of beer. Let's not stick him with a felony. Completely agree with that. And even on the second time. But if this person decides to be the habitual offender, we're going to allow the justice system to deal with this person and to incentivize them to get out of this cycle. And then the thing that it did that I am really excited about implementing is this new thing called a treatment mandated felony. And I mean, Scott, you would know more about the psychology of this than I do, but I think there's something out there, some misinformation that the only way you can have successful treatment is if you, without any pressure whatsoever, walk into a treatment facility and ask for help. But the studies I read, and you can elucidate this, say that, pushing somebody in that direction and incentivizing them to choose that path does not hurt their chances of success. And so what Prop 36 did is it said on the third time that you're convicted of hard drugs, methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, you will get two roads to choose from. You still get to choose. You get to choose either jail or prison, or you choose treatment. It's called a treatment mandated felony. And if you finish your treatment successfully, your conviction goes away. It disappears. You have no record to follow you. And that is what I'm working now is Prop 36 passed by almost 70% of the vote because it had this thing that I think most people are seeking, which is not extremes, but a balanced, solution-based approach that has compassion, but has accountability. And this is what it offers. So I'm working with the courts, with public defender, with behavioral health at the county to make sure that there's enough treatment resources and evidence-based assessments to tell us what do people really need, because not everyone's going to be the same, so that we can get them off this destructive path that can only lead to death or prison, essentially. So that's
Okay.
what I've been up to lately.
Couple questions for you about that. The fact that 70% supported it in California is remarkable. But what was the outliers, the majority? What was their pushback or their objection to something like this after all these years of trying to engage people? What was the outstanding red flag for them, did they think?
Well, I mean, 10 years of data that showed that it's not working, that, overdose deaths in our homeless population are at 117 times higher rate than in non-homeless population. That yes, there's poverty, PTSD, but there's no way to get them to accept resources and get them off the street because we've given them an option as a society to just keep using and doing whatever they want to do that's going to eventually end in their demise. Their main objection was essentially that this is going to increase incarceration. That's the bottom line. It's about incarceration. They weren't looking at the death toll on overdoses. They weren't looking at the fact that the primary goal is treatment. So it's like time and time again, opportunity after opportunity, the whole treatment mandated felony, it's mandated, meaning not even, let's say we had a prosecutor who really just wanted to send somebody to jail. They can't because it's mandated that we offer them treatment and that we're able to give them treatment. So the law really, really balanced all of these things, but I think they got stuck on that someone on a third conviction could face a felony, could fail out of treatment, could go to jail. But that's not the goal of the law. The goal is
Right.
treatment.
Well, it is a disease of denial, unfortunately, so that they could be right with that. So on the other side, though, of that thinking, it sounds real similar to what drug court was basically put in place for. And I understand that drug court was one of the most revolutionary new changes in our country with the courts. And even they were, in my opinion, because I used to speak there, they were a little fluffy, because, Johnny says he's not going to do it again. Well, if their lips are moving, my attitude is they're probably not telling the truth because nobody wants to go away. And then 3 years ago, the Department of Corrections in California, the head of the CDC said, we know after 20 years of studies, rehab in prison doesn't really work. And 95% of those who attend get out. So the fact that we're getting this component together, but isn't this kind of, I don't even know, I don't think drug court exists anymore because it was a funding issue. And then the next question is, how is law enforcement, first, the first responders, how are they seeing this idea?
Great question. So drug court works really well. And this is really a concept that was resting upon the experience we had in drug court. And that's to have the court develop a team, and the team's goal is not for like a gotcha moment, like we want you to fail so we can send you here, but more about putting the right pressures, the right consequences in place, the right rewards in place to get somebody to the other side. And our drug court in San Diego had close to about a 7% recidivism rate, which means that it's a huge success. Recidivism meaning new crimes, right? I attend and continue to attend because we still have a drug court. It's just a lot smaller, and I'll tell you why. The graduations, and they are the most uplifting things you can attend because you have somebody who's now actually returned to their purpose that they were put on earth for. And it's not to just be enslaved to the drugs and to the addiction. It's to be a free human. This is sort of our human craving, is to be free. You know, people lose their lives to be free, but they give up their life for this chemical addiction. And to see people freed and empowered to have control over their life through a hard road of a lot of work that they did, I'm proud of them for doing this work. And beholding their babies again, reunited with their families, is an incredible thing. But what happened was, because the result, the consequence under the law after Prop 47, no matter how many times you possess hard drugs, it's a citation or a misdemeanor. There was really no incentive for people to sign up for the hard road of treatment. And so they became half full, basically, for the higher level crimes. And the hope with Prop 36 is that they'll be full again, even though not everybody will need the 18-month treatment course. Some, it may be more like 1 year or 6 months. There'll be an individual assessment for that person as to what their needs are. But the way that the presiding judge has it, it's that drug court judge who really understands treatment is the one who's going to manage the Prop 36 population. And I applaud that thinking by the court because it makes a lot of sense.
That's great. The other piece that I think is interesting, some insight that you may or may not have picked up on, is, as you know, statistically now that we're seeing overdoses decrease. I believe naloxone has a big part of it, but I got to be honest with you. The people I know in recovery, what I'm hearing is there's a fear factor that, even though fentanyl is laced in a significant amount of drugs out there, most people don't want to take a pill and die. So there's a fear now, if they don't have the test strips, that I'm going to get high and die. And I'm 26 years old, and that's not my intent. So I think there's a lot of fear. And I think that's why we're seeing other drug sales going back up again, like methamphetamine and cocaine and some alcohol as well. So I think it's a perfect storm. I think if 36 can take off, and I'd love to work with the drug court, because I remember at one point they were actually going to have a jury of people in recovery who would be responsible for helping with the sentencing, pretend sentencing, so to speak. And they'd be sitting there being judged literally by a group of their peers, which would help I remember when they created homeless courts, we were one of the first ones to host it at our office out in, Southeast San Diego, and then at, over at VVSD. So the concept of that peer support and giving people a choice, if we can stay behind it, we will create systemic change. Because if prevention and education doesn't work, and we know incarceration doesn't work, if we can't get it at the front end and keep them out of the river, so to speak, if they get in there and they get addicted, because a lot of people think getting high and being high is a form of freedom. So when you have this argument with someone who is under the influence of something mood altering, they'll say, hey, I don't have any more problems anymore because I have a tool to fix it. Well, but that tool, isn't that going to kill you over time? Well, I've been doing it for 5 years and nothing's happened to me yet, but how many friends have you lost? How many people do you know that have expired just in the last 5 years? So I think I wouldn't say that if you went into a fellowship meeting and asked how many people here are excited about early recovery, most aren't. But if you give them an option, the graveyard or help, most people will take the help. So I applaud you, and I know how tough it was to get this thing passed and how long it's taken. So I'm, you know me, you call me anytime. I'll be there to help. All right. I know Fredd, because I know you're union, Fredd, and if you don't get a certain amount of questions in, you always give me a hard time. So,
well, I'm not. One is because I'm on the East Coast versus you guys on the West Coast, you're talking about a lot of things that I'm unaware of. Obviously, I'm 3,000 miles away. But I do question whether, Summer, do you have any connection to like Connecticut DAs? I mean, are you guys all connected in a almost unionized like?
Well, the association, the National District Attorneys Association, has over 6,000 members, and it has about 80% of the prosecutors in the United States. It's like a national association for a common goal of advancing prosecutors to the highest level of ethics and training and help for their communities. I'm the president right now. So, for example, in July, we'll be offering a little training on what we did with Prop 36 and how it's being implemented. In fact, I'll have a parent, a very brave parent who lost a beautiful young lady to fentanyl, who was part of helping us with this law, with this initiative, also speak to the crowd, of prosecutors from around the nation, about why did he support this law, and of course he'll tell them that he didn't want another parent to suffer what he suffered, and wanted to have a solution, wanted to have their other people's children's live. So it's a great association to spread this kind of like what worked in one area, we share that information with other areas. And for San Diego, we're going to share this piece. We've shared already on our school threats protocol. We have an excellent protocol on preventing school threats. One thing, Fredd, that you may not know is I did something unique when I became DA, and I think that's why Scott and I also get along so well, is ethical prosecution, holding people accountable in court. That's an important part of justice. But the real win is prevention. So we changed our mission to include prevention, to include ethical prosecution, but also the prevention of harm. So taking the lessons that we know from the devastation of criminal justice, because at the end of the day, there are no winners. You have a victim who may be dead. You have somebody who's in prison. I mean, no one is happy. It's not a good day for anyone. But if you can prevent that, if you can stop somebody from the cycle of addiction that might lead them to beat up their spouse or to cause that kind of damage, then you've really created a win. So that's what we focused on in San Diego.
That's excellent. Thank you. It's a problem here too, just like it is there. Of course, we're a much smaller state, much smaller, but the problem still exists. It's still, I don't know what my DAs are doing or I don't follow it as close as Scott does. And I try to follow the people that are having the issues and I read the stories, but I just do not grasp the law side of it because it's so state to state.
Right. That's true. But many states have gone more into the path of decriminalizing drugs, right? And the issue that they created is not in the actual decriminalizing, it's in the decriminalizing or the lowering of consequences did not include an incentive to engage in treatment, like a mandatory treatment portion. So the result is when you track those states, they have the highest number of overdoses and homelessness because they did, and some of the states are reversing that, like Oregon recently reversed its own self and went back to criminalizing drugs, not because they don't want treatment, but because when left completely on their own, people were not getting the treatment and were spiraling into homelessness and crime.
And I think, Fred, part of my, full immersion is because of my own personal recovery. Because historically in our community, the idea of criminal justice and treatment, they haven't really worked hand in hand because they're not, plus we're a border town. So we have a lot of things coming at us, but something else that exists here that's really a unique phenomenon. And I haven't spent a lot of time out of California, but I've talked to a lot of people in a lot of states and wrote a book about it, which is, summer's in, that our leadership in the criminal justice side and law enforcement and prevention, they sit together at a state, local, and a federal level. And when Homeland Security became something that, was created, they're all at the table, which is unusual. I remember going to a conference once here, summer downtown a few years ago, and I was the only guy in the room. There was like 300 plus. They were disclosing what was going on with China and how the exporting works. There was a DEA agent that had flown in to share the story. And I was amazed. I looked around. I didn't know anybody in the room. But part of what we try to do through SOAP is get different members to speak, so we can see that there is that connectivity with treatment and the prevention side. So that's why SOAP was really created, is to set up a network to do that. At Confidential Recovery, that's what we try to do is make sure. And I'm hoping, I don't know if you've heard of Sunbreak or not, to give them a plug, but they're working on that homeless idea with George Mullen and a few others. And I think they've got a great idea as a place that the drug courts, and after Prop 36, somebody can go immediately upon choosing the, I'm going to say path, not the sentence, but it'll feel like a sentence, but to get into a stable environment that offers a continuum of care. And if for some reason after a month or two, they're not liking life better, and their time is up for that component, they can always go, take me down to RJ Donovan. I'll spend a year down there where it's all kinds of fun. So, the 3 hots and a cot is not the incentive it was 10 years ago for people, because everyone knows somebody. I think it was 5 years ago, 1 in 7 knew someone who had overdosed or died. 4 years ago it was like 1 in 4, and now it's like 1 in 2. So the reality, this tsunami, this epidemic, there isn't a whole lot of people that don't know about it. So the idea of being able to build awareness around it, and I hope there's a lot of publicity around that, because it's, the science behind success is giving people a choice. So, that's something I'm really excited about. I know we're running out of time, but I want to ask you, what haven't we asked you today that we should ask you? What would you like our viewers and guests to know that we didn't think about asking you or hadn't asked you yet?
Well, I think I've learned a lot from you, Scott, from your book that I have in my office. I do think you made an excellent point that there isn't one kind of formula. For example, our addiction number, our overdose numbers are going down, and it is a complicated formula as to why that's happened. But I do think that one thing we've taken away is educating our kids about the dangers of drugs at an early age before they begin using, right? And in a way that's persistent, not just a one time, we keep teaching them about math. We see math classes like become more and more complex, but we don't teach them about life and have the issues become more and more complex. And we expect them to pick that up somewhere else. But the problem is, you and I know, and I'm sure Fred knows, that somewhere else is the internet. And it doesn't mean it's a valid source, right? So, that's where the kids learn to go and buy Adderall, to buy Percocet on the internet. And that's where they're ending up with fentanyl. And it's not a good conclusion. So a little bit of fear that's based in reality, I do think might have impacted this lowered number, where people are like, I know somebody who died. This is no joke. This is not, this is something that's very serious. So being careful. And then I do want to leave one thing with you is test strips are complicated, right? Because, for example, they developed test strips for um, fentanyl. But now we know in San Diego, we just got an advisory from the medical examiner that lots of our fentanyl supply has xylazine, which is a tranq, and it has no test strip that's clear right now, or is somebody supposed to use multiple test strips? So there is something to be said for, okay, test strips may have their place, but in just relying on actually educating that for the most part, taking foreign substances that aren't part of a healthy life could have a bad consequence. That's not a bad thing to do with our kids. It's almost like we become where we're afraid to tell them that something is not good for them. And it's okay to tell them that. So maybe as DA who has seen so many horrible stories and so many parents with so much pain, I think we should invest more in really, really effective prevention education in our schools.
I agree. Fred,
That's great.
Taylor.
That's pretty much it, Scott. So I'm glad that you introduced us, and I'm glad I was able to hear and listen. This is the least I've talked on an episode, but that's okay because sometimes you have to learn to listen, and I like that I'm learning slowly how to be a listener. So, do you want to give your phone number out, Scott, before we wrap it up?
I do. Don't forget, anytime, anywhere, call me or text me at 619-993-2738, or just Google me, Scott H. Silverman, or Your Crisis Coach. And it's okay to ask for help. I'm still doing it at my age. And you know what? Every time I do it, I feel a little better.
Well, great. Well, that's going to be it, Scott. So I want to thank Summer for joining us. It was very nice to meet you. Hopefully we can get you back in a year or two, and we'll talk further about that. So this is Your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman and me, Fredd Carroll. And I am here to tell you that if nobody has told you they love you today, we love you, and we will be back again next week. Be good.